Hello Stardust. Welcome to a new video. Today I bring you a story from ancient Chinese folklore called the Blue Rose. I named the tote bag that I am painting in the video Roses Are Blue, inspired by this story. But first I will tell you a little bit about the process you are watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet. Your support is very important. I made these blue and purple roses using acrylic paint mixed with acrylic mixer that renders the paint textile friendly. If you want to try this at home, you can either buy paint specific for textile, or if you already have acrylic paint, then you can get this solution from any art supply store and mix it with your paint. The paint then will become smoother, more malleable, and lasts longer on the textile, even without the need for ironing. My process is starting with a base color with a big stroke brush. Then I start adding lighter strokes and smaller strokes. From there, I refine the details, adding contrast by making the highlights and shadows. I keep on repeating the same process over and over until I am satisfied with the result or until I can no longer add details. I have noticed my process more thanks to working on these videos for you. By watching myself paint over and over, I notice what works and what doesn't. So here's an advice for you. If you are practicing a new skill or if you want to get better at something that you already do well, recording and watching yourself can bring you insights. So even if you do not plan on sharing your videos, recording and watching your process can be very beneficial for you. And now, let's jump into this old Chinese story. Once upon a time, there lived an emperor who had but one daughter, who was his pride and joy. The princess was beautiful, kind, and smart, and the emperor loved her deeply. However, as he aged, the emperor began to worry about his daughter's future. He wanted her to get married, while she showed no interest in the subject. So he set forth a proclamation to summon young men to court in search of a husband for his daughter. Many came, but all were turned away. The princess had no desire to marry and leave her father's side just yet. The emperor remained steadfast, but finally agreed to allow his daughter to name one qualification that her chosen husband must meet, be it wealth, looks, strength, or intelligence, or ability. The proclamation was set, and all the men of the kingdom waited with bated breath to hear what the princess would demand. That evening, the princess went for a walk in the royal garden with the gardener's son, her childhood friend. They discussed the possible qualifications for her future husband, knowing that choosing the wrong one could lead to a lifetime of misery. The gardener's son suggested that she makes it some sort of a test, difficult but not impossible, to ensure that only the worthy would pass. After much thought, the princess made her decision and declared to her father that the man who could bring her a blue rose would win her hand in marriage. As you can expect, the line of suitors came to an abrupt halt, for none could find a blue rose. Several months passed, and the wealthy merchant decided he wanted to marry the princess. However, he didn't want to waste any of his precious time looking for a blue rose, and so he sought the help of a flower vendor. The vendor took a white rose and added blue dye to the vase, but the dye was toxic. Soon, the petals of the rose turned pale blue, and the vendor gladly accepted the gold. When the merchant presented the blue rose to the princess, she saw that a drop of blue dye had puddled in her hand. Disgusted at the deceit, she rejected the merchant's proposal, for she wanted a husband who was true. Several more weeks passed, and a handsome young warrior decided he wanted to marry the princess. He was strong and powerful. He journeyed to a neighboring kingdom to demand they bring him a blue rose, or he would kill them and half the people in their village. The king, who valued peace, had an artisan carve an exquisite rose from a blue sapphire. When he presented it to the princess, she saw that the rose and the young warrior's eyes were as cold and hard. She rejected him, for she wished to marry a man who was kind and patient, not someone cruel who abuses their power. Finally, the youngest of the king's advisors sought the princess's hand. He was very smart and knew how to play all the angles. He visited the wizard and commanded him to fashion a blue rose, one that would fool everyone, especially the princess. The wizard created a hologram of a blue rose that appeared inside a glass box. When he presented it to the princess, the court was astounded, and she was fascinated. However, when she reached out to touch it, the image slipped through her fingers. She rejected the advisor, for she could not marry someone who twisted things around to his advantage. That night, the princess sat in the garden with the gardener's son, lamenting that none of the suitors could bring her a blue rose. He then told her to wait for him in the blue room just before sundown. The princess felt something in her heart, and she knew she could trust him. The next day, the court met in the blue room, and the gardener's son appeared in the doorway, carrying an ordinary white rose that he picked from the garden. The court murmured, wondering why the gardener's son was there and why he carried a common white rose. But the young man knelt before the princess, and through the blue-stained glass, the rays of the setting sun lit upon the petals of the white rose. The princess reached out and put her hand upon his. She saw a man who had always been honest and true, who was patient and kind, and who valued her for herself. In his hand, he held the gift of love, the blue rose that she had longed for. The court was amazed as the princess declared that the gardener's son would be her husband. They all turned to the emperor, waiting for his reaction. And the emperor said, "If my daughter is saying this is her blue rose, then so it is." After all, she was the one to put this condition. And so, the princess and the gardener's son were married, and they lived happily ever after. Not because the storyteller says so, but because the princess and the young man knew their happiness was in their own hands. The symbolism of the blue rose is one of love, patience, kindness, and honesty. It represents the difficulties of finding true love and the determination needed to overcome them. The blue rose, while seemingly impossible to obtain, symbolizes that true love is worth the wait and the effort. The gardener's son proved that one didn't need to be wealthy, strong, or powerful to win the heart of a princess. Honest, patient, and kind were the true qualities that would make love last forever. I hope you enjoyed this story and learned the valuable lesson that true love is about more than just looks and power. It's about finding someone who makes you happy, no matter what the world thinks. And remember, always cherish those who love you for who you are, and keep your heart open to the possibility of finding your own blue rose. Until next time, stay enchanted and let the magic of love guide your way.